Let us not forget everything that happens. It's by the will of Allah. Holy will. It's time to unite and stand, and we will be the best amongst men. It's not time to be extreme or a duty unthinkable, but to stand together as one. Tune into Sunnah followers, streaming every day, various platforms. Trust me, you'll find a way. Sunnah followers.
To just get right into it. So we're going to continue from where we were left off in the subject matter of Aqidah, the beliefs of the Muslims, and we were going over the benefits of the Shahadah, the benefits of the Shahadah and the status and the virtue of the Shahadah. Does anyone remember some of the things that we covered dealing or pertaining with some of the benefits of the Shahadah? We covered the virtues of the Shahadah.
One of the brothers typed that it has to be said in every prayer.
The Shahada has to be said in every. Yes, that is true, but that's not one of the things that we covered as far as the virtue or the benefits of it. We covered about 4 different benefits so far. I do believe actually a little bit more than that. No, 4. 4, yeah, 4 benefits. For example, is the binding rope. It is the greatest blessing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon his servants. It is the covenant between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his servants. And it is the husna, or the good, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the verse where it says, وَأَمَّا مَنْ أَعْتَى وَاتَّقَى وَصَدَّقَ بِالْحُسْنَى. As for he who gives and is fearful of his Lord, and he affirms the husna as truth, and that husna is la ilaha illallah. It is the shahada. That individual, then we will make easy for him that which is easy. Okay, so that's where we left off. We covered those benefits. We're going to cover 3 more today. Bidnillahi Jalla Jalalu. Now, these 3, they're pretty much they're very close as far as their virtue, and you will see what I mean. It is the kalimatul haq. It is the word of truth. The shahada is the word of truth. The second one is, it is the kalimatul taqwa. It is the word of a taqwa. It's the word of a taqwa. Now here I'm not going to translate the word taqwa, but normally it is translated as having fear of Allah, being God-minded or conscious of Allah. Is also another translation of that. And also it is al-qawl thabit. It is a statement that is firm, or the firm statement. Right, so we're gonna talk about these 3. Just let's touch on the proofs that the proofs that establish these as virtues of the shahada. So as far as the first one, the kalimatul haq, the word of truth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, illa man shahida bil haq wa hum ya'lamun, except he who bears witness to the truth while they know. Except, and of course, the truth here, the shahada, or the truth of la ilaha illallah. So that's the first one. The second one is talking about the kalimat taqwa, the word that is a taqwa, the word that is a word that keeps one conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is وَأَلْزَمَهُمْ كَلِمَةَ التَّقْوَى وَكَانُوا أَحَقُّ بِهَا وَأَهْلُهَا. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that He has binded them, or He has how do you say, held them to the word of a taqwa, the word of being God conscious. And they had more right to that word, and they were suitable to it. And then the last virtue of the Shahadah, it being al-qawl thabit, it being the word that is firm and fixed. Allah says, يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. Allah says that He will make firm those who believe with a firm, or with a steady or fixed word in this life and in the hereafter. So those are three benefits that we mentioned, and there you can see that they're very similar. You know, one being a statement that is firm, the other two being a word of truth and a word that brings Allah to mind when we think of it. And all of those are true when it comes to the statement of the Shahada. Are there any questions in regards to that before we move on? That's what we're covering, just those three benefits or virtues of La ilaha illallah. Okay, so it seems that there aren't any questions on that, so that's good. Okay, so we're going to move on then to the 40 hadith of Imam An-Nawawi, rahimahullah, and we are actually at the 40th hadith. So that means we only have two more hadith, or a hadith to go, or hadithan if we want to be more specific. So the hadith that we're going to cover, the 40 hadith, is the hadith of Ibn Umar. It goes, عن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال أخذ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بمنكبي أو بمنكبي فقال كن في الدنيا كأنك غريب أو عابر سبيل أو عابر سبيل عابر سبيل. وكان ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما يقول إذا أمسيت فلا تنتظر الصباح وإذا أصبحت فلا تنتظر المساء وخذ من صحتك لمرضك ومن حياتك لموتك. رواه البخاري. The hadith of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, in which he said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam touched him, or placed his hands on his shoulder and said to him, be in this world as if you are a foreigner or a stranger, some translations, or an abir sabil, or a person that's just walking by. And Ibn Umar radiallahu an, he used to say, if you're able to make it until the evening, then don't wait, or don't expect to make it basically to the morning. And if you're able to make it to the morning, then don't expect to make it to the evening. And take from your health, right? Take advantage of your health for when you're going to be sick. and take advantage of your livelihood. I mean, you living, being alive for the time that you will be dead. This hadith is recorded by Imam al-Bukhari. So what are the benefits of this hadith? This hadith shows us a couple things. First of all, when we see that Ibn Umar, radiallahu anhu, who narrated this hadith, said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam placed his hands on his shoulder. This here shows us the keen memory of this companion to remember such details as the fact, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam placed his hand on his shoulder. And also we understand from this that doing something like this from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a way of gaining that individual's attention that he's speaking to, so that they can pay more attention, which obviously it worked, right? Because now we have this hadith. And normally you do something of that for the person to pay attention and for them to understand the significance and the importance of what it is you're about to relate to them. So that was one of the benefits that we get from that. And it is a wasila, or a device that can be used for teaching or conveying important information. Another benefit is that this hadith encourages us as Muslims to have a sense of being of those people that are foreign to this world. It's almost like, like being gharib is like being a person that has traveled to a place on a work visa. You know that that visa has a beginning date and an end date, and then you have to leave right after. You're just there to do your work, put in your work, get paid, and then go back to your country. And we have to think of our life here on this earth just like that. It's all temporary. It's a temporary situation. And because of that, we should prepare ourselves for our next destination by doing good deeds, doing the work. Another benefit is once again, we see how the companions hasten and they are diligent when it comes to doing any acts of good deed that they can as much as possible. Being that, Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, he took this as a mantra, or a way of living his life. A mantra, I mean. And to the point where he has actually made that hadith into a saying that he would tell people, if you live through today, don't expect to live through the night. If you live through the night, don't expect to live till the morning. And work like that. And of course, it shows another virtue of Ibn Umar, being that he was able to take this advice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and work by it. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all the benefits that we can get from them. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more, but these are most of the generalities from this hadith, inshallah ta'ala. Are there any questions regards to that hadith? Wafa wa alaikum assalam. Is the affirmation enough without action? No. Part of the belief of La ilaha illallah, the affirmation aspect of it comes with it, or is an intrinsic part of it, is actions. You have to have actions along with La ilaha illallah. And that action differs depending on the opportunity. So saying La ilaha illallah by itself is an action. And if you were to die after saying that, that's enough of an act. That's the only action that you were requested to do, and you've completed that. So you've done the what you can with the time that you had. But let's say some time goes by and now the salat is due, or somebody walks by you and you know that it's the sunnah, for example, to give the salams or whatever, any of the mutalabat of Islam, right? Anything that's requested of you from Islam, but we're specifically obligations. You are now requested to do those acts, and those acts become part of your iman, and your iman is going to be gauged according to your adherence to those obligations, which are now part of what you know is put upon you. So, but yes, acts of worship are part of the Shahada. You have to do the actions. So Gregory Priest, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sheikh Nakir, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay. So if there aren't any other questions, I guess we can continue on. Bidnillahi ta'ala. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do, Bidnillah, is Seerah. And if you guys remember, we talked about the Battle of Badr, and we talked about fasting. What is the importance of mentioning those two things together, the Battle of Badr and fasting? Why did we mention those two things together last class? Anyone remembers? We said that the Battle of Badr was the first major battle that the Muslims had. But why was that mentioned along with fasting? The Battle of Badr took place what year during the Islamic calendar?
One of the brothers here says, is it because the Muslims were fasting?
That is correct. The first time fasting happened during, of course, Taban in Ramadan. The Battle of Badr took place on the 17th of Ramadan. So they were fasting when the Battle of Badr took place. And then after that, the Sheikh, he goes on to say, وَوَجَبَتْ فِيهِ زَكَاةُ الْفِطْرِ مِنْ بَعْدِ بَدْرٍ بِلَيْلٍ عَشْرٍ. So, because this was the first Ramadan, and it is the Ramadan in which they also had the Battle of Badr, another thing that became obligatory because they fasted is what? Who has a guess on that? What else became obligatory? Now, this is the second year after the Hijrah. They were fasting for the first time, Ramadan as an obligation, right? So what else became obligatory upon them, do you think? I'll give you guys some time. I know that sometimes there's a delay and stuff like that. Give you guys some time. What else do you guys think became obligatory? Okay, so Wafah said to make up days. That would make sense, but no, that's not the answer that we're looking for. But you're on the right. I think you're on the right track.
One of the sisters here on Trovo said, "Is that when hijab came?"
No, that's not the answer that we're looking for. It has to do. There's a connection to what has preceded, right? So we're talking about fasting being obligatory. So it's something that's connected to that.
Sister Ajwa said to fight.
Well, that was obligatory, yes, but but that's more on the fighting part because of the Battle of Badr and stuff like that. But no, we're speaking more specifically something that's connected to the fasting, more than the fighting aspect of what happened that during that time. The laying the salat, that did happen, but not specifically this battle. That was the battle of the Khandaq. And so the battle of the trenches is when they had to delay the prayer. This though, kind of getting a little far away, man. Think about fasting. Think about fasting. Something that's else is obligatory. Okay, fasting is obligatory. What else is obligatory that has to do with fast?
Somebody else said intentions.
You have to have intentions before you fast. That's true. Okay, so that's before. What about after?
Somebody else said to make up the days.
I think somebody said something like that already. I think, yeah, Sister Wafat said that already. No, so I'm gonna give the answer. The answer is zakat, zakat al-fitr. Okay, affirmation of why you fast. That's also something that's also correct. But the answer I was looking for was zakat al-fitr. Right, one of the major obligations that has been legislated is paying off the zakat al-fitr, and it happened the same year that Ramadan became obligatory. So it's the second year. So the same when Ramadan became obligatory, just before Ramadan ended, and this is what some of the scholars of the scholars of Seerah said, that just before Ramadan ended, the obligation of paying zakat al-fitr was revealed, and that is when the people were aware that that was something that they had to do. So zakat al-fitr, and for those who don't know what zakat al-fitr is, it is when you give in charity something for breaking or the end of the fasting month, right? What we give in charity to celebrate the ending of the fasting month, that is zakat al-fitr. And I think we covered it a little bit when we did the zakat class and stuff. Inshallah ta'ala. So any questions on that? I mean, that's all the Sheikh had talked about, inshallah ta'ala. And, you know, we're slow rolling when it comes to the Seerah. So there's nothing else really to cover except for that. Let's remember that the second year after the Hijrah, Ramadan became obligatory. Badr happened in the 17th of Ramadan. And of course, the zakat al-fitr became obligatory as well, or the breaking of the fast charity, if you want to say it in English. I think that should be correct as far as translation goes. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, we'll move on with Nahi Ta'ala. Okay, so inshallah ta'ala, we're gonna be talking about where we left off at when it comes to marriage, which is the issue of marriage being obligatory, it being encouraged, or sunnah, or what's another word for it, mustahab, or mandub. All of these are mutaradifat. They're synonyms pretty much. And then we have mubah, which we didn't cover yet. And then we covered makruh, when it's disliked. And now, inshallah ta'ala, today we're going to cover muharram or haram, when it is impermissible to get married. Well, before we do, does anyone remember when is it disliked to get married? What are some, or what did the scholars say as far as when it is disliked? Now, a lot of the opinions in this regard, they were pretty close together, right? They were like basically three of the school of thought. They had pretty much said around the same thing when it comes to when it is disliked, and then there was someone else from amongst the school of thought or another school of thought that said something that was a little bit different. Does anyone remember what that is?
A brother here typed, when a man is not capable to perform his duty.
Okay. That needs some a little bit more detail. Okay, so Imam Mutawaf, he says here, sex. We need a little bit more than that. I mean, what does that mean? What, marrying just for sex? Or I don't understand exactly what you're trying to hint at there.
A sister typed, if the person cannot provide and maintain his spouse.
Okay, if he cannot provide and maintain his spouse, no, I don't believe that we covered anything about maintenance, did we? No, mostly what they said has to do with more about his the issue of having the desire for relations, right? If he doesn't have the desire for relations, but able to have relations, this is when it might be disliked. If it's something that might keep him away from acts of worship, this is when it might be disliked. There's a possibility for that. Those are some of the things that we mentioned. Okay, so let's go now to when is it haram? When is it haram? When is it impermissible to get married? And I want to touch on something here. So I remember the last class, someone had mentioned that what did the Salaf say and things like that when it comes to this issue. Now, there might be some confusion, I guess, from some of the students that are attending the class. What is the objective of studying fiqh? And I want to cover this so we can all be up on the same page, inshallah, before we delve into this, because asking a question like, what did the Salaf say in this issue, is shows that there might be some disconnect when it comes to understanding what is it we're doing here. Fiqh, first of all, fiqh, which is, Islamic jurisprudence. The studying of fiqh is studying and trying to understand the statements of the scholars, right? And when you do that, when you study fiqh, especially when you study from the four school of thought, you're studying the statements of the four imams in these issues, and that is in general. When you study these four school of thoughts, you're studying the opinion of the four imams, trying to understand why they say what they said, and how does that connect with the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. And it's important for us to understand too as well that when we talk about these imams, Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, and Ahmed, rahmatullahi alayhim jami'an, that all of these imams are from the Salaf. And what do we mean by that? That they are from, like, for example, when we talk about, and all of them, of course, they're students of one another, right? So when we talk about the three generations, right, that are the generation that have some virtue with them, right? when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was asked about, the best generation, he says the generation that I am in, then the generation that comes after them, the generation that comes after them. So when we talk about Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, he is a student of the companions, being that he met some of the companions. So he's a tabi'i. He is a tabi'i. So he's a student of the companions. Malik is a student of the companions, right? He studied with the major, like he studied with like Ibn Sa'id ibn Musayyab. That was one of his teachers, and he is one of the major students of the companion. So he's a student of the companion. Imam Shafi'i studied with Imam Malik. So he's a student of the students of the student of the companion. And then, of course, Imam Ahmed studied with Imam Shafi'i and so forth. So, okay, I see what the Imam is saying here, Imam Mutawaf. So we'll address his statement, inshallah ta'ala, as far as the answer to the issue of makruh when it's disliked. So understanding that, right, we're studying the statement of these great imams that are part of that Quruna Mufaddala. They are part of that, those generations that are preferred, those generations that we're supposed to look at to understand how to properly interpret and implement text. Now, we have to understand too as well that there are, just because we try to hold on to the understanding of these great generations, does not mean that we're going to somehow arrive at some type of understanding where we're gonna have to do no work involved, or we can shut our brains off and, oh, here's what the Salaf said and that's it. Because there are going to be differences of opinion. Even at that time, they differed in opinions in different issues. And that's going to become apparent. And we still have to do the work at finding out what they mean, what their intention is behind their statements, and also which one of them, their statement is closer to that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger intended by their verses and statement. And we're not excused. None of us are excused, and this is the right opinion, by just relying completely on somebody else to filter for us our deen. We have to put that work in. All of us as Muslims, we are commanded to follow the Quran and the Sunnah. All of us as Muslims, we need to make sure that that's what we're doing, and we're not following a statement of anyone else, ka'inan man kan, no matter who it is. And we see this from the Salaf. We see this from the likes of Imam Ahmed, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Abu Hanifa. They've all pretty much said something similar to that about making sure that we know what it is that we should be holding on to. Okay, so hopefully that clarifies certain things. That us studying and trying to understand the statements of the scholars is just a way for facilitating for us the ease of gaining those rulings that we need from the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Okay, and this is not something that just applies to fiqh, right? If you study hadith, you're going to still have to know, what do these imams of hadith, what do they mean by their statements and things like that? You have to study their intention and what they mean. There's research on, just for example, Imam Tirmidhi, when he says Hasan al-Gharib, when he says that this hadith is sound, but it is unique. What does he mean by that? there are books written on that from scholars who have written their dissertation on that specific word that Imam Tirmidhi used, because by understanding those terminologies that the scholars use, we're able to put everything in its proper place and understand what they mean by what they said, which will bring us closer to understanding different rulings, which will bring us closer to understanding, in this case, in this instance, what hadith we can use and what hadith we have to leave alone. Okay, so that's enough of that. Now going back to the issue here. Okay, so Imam Mutawaf, he said, if that's the only reason, so marrying for sex alone, is that disliked? I have to go back, so I'm not sure if we covered that or not. Let's see here. All right, so we have here يكون مكروها لخوف الجو تعارض خوف الوقوع في الزنا. No. No, no. Now there's the Imam Malik or the Malikis. They say that it's dislike if you don't have a desire to have sex, and then when you get married, it prevents you from worship. So not only do you not really need to get married because you didn't have that desire, but once you got married, now you're not able to do your acts of worship like you used to and stuff like that. So that is something that would be considered a dislike. Okay, so going back to the issue of haram. So the Hanafis, now that right there, what Sister Wafaz says about marrying without the ability to perform, that is something that we're going to see that's in the haram section of marriage. So here they say that yakunu nikah haraman in tayaqqan al-jawr. So they say that if you're certain that there's going to be some form of oppression going on, some form of wrongdoing, if you get married, that you'll be wronging the person, the individual that you're wronging, without a doubt, then it is haram for you to get married. And the reason why they say that is because marriage is legislated because of benefits that can be gotten, personal benefit that can be gotten for each individual, such as the reward for having children who would then worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and single him out in worship. So if you marry someone only to wrong them knowingly, like, without a doubt, that you're going to be wronging them in some way or another. And then, of course, if you wrong them, you're going to be sinning. And that sinning will lead to you committing those acts or acts that are impermissible, that are not allowed, that are haram. So because of that, you've just done away with the benefit that would have come about through marriage, or the reason why, the benefit that would be the reason why an individual would get married. So if you're sure that you're going to cause some harm to that person, you cannot, it's haram to get married according to Imam Abu Hanifa and his school of thought. So let's hear what Imam Malik says here. Says يحرم عليه النكاح إذا لم يخشى الزنا وكان نكاحه يضر بالمرأة. Now here Imam Malik says pretty much the same thing, that if you don't fear that you're going to fall into fornication if you get married, but you marrying will harm the sister, the woman that you're going to marry, then it is not permissible to marry. And what the harm that we're talking about here is, for example, like if you're not able to have relations, and that was something that was brought up, right? If you're not able to have relations, that will cause harm to the person that you are marrying. If you have no desire for relations, that will cause harm for the person that you're marrying in a lot of cases, right? Because for men, it's very difficult for us to be able to perform without desire. It's very difficult. For women, there can still be intimacy even though she has no desire for it. So it's a little bit different, unless the person that she's married to requires that in the interaction, right? He requires that. He's not going to be satisfied with just like a log, just laying there and stuff. That's not going to work for him. But that differs from person to person. So not being able to perform physically, and also not being able to spend for a man, not being able to spend, and not being and only being able to acquire finances through haram meaning that if the only way that you could take care of your family is by doing haram, then it is haram for you to get married. And then also Imam Malik, his school of thought, they mentioned as well, or getting married makes you delay the prayer. And delaying the prayer meaning that you miss the prayer, like the time is gone, because you are busy trying to earn money to take care of this woman, your wife, right? So if you have to earn money, and that earning money, something that you have to do, you have to earn, right? If that is something that now is stopping you from praying on time, not permissible for you to get married according to this school of thought. Now let's see what and that's all they had to say. Right now, let's see what Imam Shafi'i he has to say. It says, "Man la yasih nikahuhu مع عدم الحاجة إليه كسفي فإنه يحرم عليه." Okay, so here Imam Shafi'i, he brings something very interesting, right? He says that a person whose marriage would not be valid if he didn't have the need for relations. Okay, what do I mean? Like okay, so it's kind of difficult to explain here. You have someone that's lightheaded. They're not all there in the mind, right? This person should not get married because their intellect is not complete. And the only time it is said that they should get married is if they don't get married, they'll fall into haram. So this person whose intellect is incomplete, if they were to fall into haram, if they didn't get married, then they can get married. But if not, it is haram for them to get married in this condition. That is what Imam Shafi'i is saying. Now, in the school of thought of Imam Ahmed, I think we covered. Am I in the wrong place? Because I think we covered. Oh yeah, I'm reading the wrong. I knew I was reading the wrong thing because I was like, hold on, we read that already. Okay. Okay, now the Hanabila, yes. Now, this is one is kind of very difficult for me to even. I don't fully understand where Imam Ahmed was coming from with this scenario. I mean, because we don't have this exact scenario available to us now, but he says, like, if you're entering into a place of non-Muslim, a country, town, city, wherever it is, right? By yourself, he's saying that it's not permissible for you to get married, except for out of necessity. Other than that, you shouldn't get married while you're there in that situation, unless you go in there along with others, like you're with an army into the non-Muslim land. Then you can, in that scenario, you can get married. I don't know, like I said, that these type of scenarios, we're kind of far removed from it, so I don't know what else to tell you as far as that's concerned. But that's pretty much it. Inshallah ta'ala, the next class we're going to cover is going to be ibaha. When is it not haram, or when is it in the middle? When is it okay either way to get married? Whether it is like, when is it okay for you to get married or not get married? Both of it is equal, 50-50. All right, that's what we're going to be covering next class, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Are there any questions? Because if not, we're going to stop right there.
Okay, one of the sisters asked, here's two questions. The first one is, wonder if the individuals are unable to have children. If the woman cannot have children.
Okay, so we understand that one of the reasons why marriage has been legislated is to have those kids and stuff like that, right? To continue the next generation and stuff like that. But for every individual, that doesn't necessarily have to be present in order to be able to fulfill some of the bare bone minimums of a marriage. As long as the brother is aware that that is something that cannot happen, I don't think that that's an issue. That shouldn't be an issue at all, inshallah, and that should not prevent the sister from marrying, as long as she's upfront about that being her situation.
Okay, the same sister also asked, can you please explain what does intellect have to do with it?
What is intellect? Okay, so if somebody is not all there mentally, like they have some, for lack of a better word, like retardation or something like that, that person is not fully cognizant of their action. Right? They don't fully know what it is that they're doing all the time, or there's some deficiency in some of their ability to execute certain complex or complicated action, or be dependable to be able to fulfill certain rights and things like that. And that is the reason why. But at the same time, they might be conscious enough where they have sexual desires. So then that sexual desire has to be gauged, right? If it is to the point where, if they're left alone, that they would commit fornication and stuff like that, then to prevent that, it's best that they get married. Yes, the Imam was saying something about maintenance and protection should be in place by these people. Which scenario are we talking about? We're talking about the person that's lightheaded. Do you have any other questions while we wait for the Imam to type? Any other questions on your end, Sis Layla?
Oh yeah, when we talk about marriage, these sisters come with it. Okay, here's another one. She says, what if a man marries for convenience for a short period of time and then divorces the woman?
But what about it? I mean, what's the question in there?
Is that, I guess she's asking if that's a legal marriage or something. I don't know.
Okay, so when it comes to marrying for convenience or for desires or whatever the reason is, that there's some details that need to be understood. There's a difference between what makes a marriage, how do you say, correct as far as meeting all of the conditions, and what is correct morally. Right? There's condition meeting conditions, and then there's a moral obligation that we will hope that everybody follows when it comes to how we treat one another and deal with one another, especially when it comes to marriage. The conditions are less strict than those that are more of a moral obligation. The conditions for marriage are less strict than those of a moral obligation. So, an individual can get married and have anything in their mind of how they're going to go about the marriage and what they're going to do after they get married and anything like that. And those things can be impermissible. They can be things that are downright mean and not good for a person that's trying to be an upright Muslim. Now, as long as this person does not voice their actions during the steps leading up to marriage, it does not hurt the validity of the marriage. For example, if a person, they decide, I need to get married, but I'm gonna just marry a sister real quick, or I'm gonna marry a brother real quick and get my rocks off, and then, at the most convenient time for me, I'm going to, slip out of that marriage and go about my business. Easier for a man to do it than a woman, but there are women that have done it from what I've heard from other imams and so forth. If that person does not voice that was their intention from the marriage, as long as the conditions of the marriage are met, that marriage is binding, right? It's legally correct. Now, morally, what they did, is it good? Is it something that we want, that we encourage that person to do that? We would say, would we expect that person, or be okay if that person did it to our mother, son, daughter? With that, no. Right? But as far as the conditions of a marriage being met, they have met all the conditions. Right? Now, when someone plays with the deen like that, though, there might be consequences or repercussions outside of the fact, what he might deal with in the hereafter. The person that he or she oppresses might have something to say about that Yawm al-Qiyamah, and Allah might have something to say about that Yawm al-Qiyamah. But if some certain brothers find out about that now, in this worldly life of ours, there might be some consequences that are connected to this physical plane that we live in. So that's one thing. So when it comes to the issue of a person marrying with the intent of divorce, as long as they don't say it out, and they make the other individual believe that it is a full marriage and stuff like that, and all the conditions are met, the marriage is legally binding, even though it is morally corrupt. I hope that explains that for the sister, inshallah.
Very good answer. Very good. Here's another question. And in regards to the lightheaded issues, two sisters here are kind of confused. They want to know, say a woman has schizophrenia. That's a lot of women have that. Should they not get married? I mean, they take their medicine, but medicine, they can sometimes become used to it, and they can still get chemically imbalanced and have to go back for another. Should they not get married?
That depends on so many different factors. It's hard to say how severe is there are their conditions. How would it impede the marriage? How would it impede her from giving her spouse his rights? You know, how often will it impede that? And it also depends on the person too, as well, the brother. I mean, after knowing all this and experiencing all this, is he a brother that's still able to remain patient? Is he willing to remain patient before and the marriage and after the marriage? Um, and that might all depends on the things that I've mentioned as far as frequency. How severe are the effects when there are, like, lapse in the effectiveness of the medication. As you can't really answer that with just like one blanket ruling without knowing specifics in that regards. Now, the Imam, he says here about if the person is incompetent, that you shouldn't get married if you cannot protect and maintain the woman on all levels that are required by a husband. All levels. I mean, that word "all levels" is kind of, maybe it's a little touchy, right? Because the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was able to maintain and protect his wives and stuff like that. What was he? What we when we say maintain on all levels, like I think we talked about how. No, it wasn't. I'm sorry. That was a khutbah that I did when it came to the food. I mean, the Prophet ﷺ were his family and him were poor. So there were times where, when Aisha was asked how many times do they eat cooked food, they said like once a month. And most of the time they were eating the aswadan, right? The two black things, which is one way of them saying, dates and water. That was how they were maintained. And that was sufficient for their time period and their, financial situation. What will be considered sufficient for us? What is the bare minimum that will be required of an individual in order to be considered that he's providing maintenance and stuff? That could differ from social status, differ from area. There's a lot of things that might go into that. One thing is for certain, though, is that there is no excuse for a brother not to try to go out there to earn, to make provisions for his family, no matter how minuscule that may be. Remember the brother that married the woman. The brother that married the woman in front of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. When the Prophet Sallallahu asked him to go and find something that you could give us a dowry, he said, "I don't got nothing in the house, not a single thing that could give us a dowry." Now, of course, the argument could be made that he had a house. Some brothers want to get married and they don't even have that. But the argument could be made that back then, everybody had a house. It's cheaper, and he has a house in like a couple of days and stuff like that. And it only has to be the size of what we would consider our bathrooms, and that's a house for that time, right? So we have to gauge things as what is acceptable now, as well as understanding that we shouldn't try to rule out the lower means that some people have. You can be poor and still considered a person that is maintaining for their level and things like that, their household, and protecting their household. And the protection thing is very important, and I really want to touch on that too. Part of protecting your spouse is making sure that you regulate when she leaves the house, making sure that she only goes out after Maghrib if it's a dire necessity, and you are aware of where she's going out and what she is doing. These are all things that are in lieu of keeping her safe, that protection. If you don't know what she's doing and you're not able to, check off on that and able to say, like, oh, I believe that's safe or that's not safe, then you're not doing your job as far as protection. Just a reminder for the brothers out there and sisters too as well. Sisters, you shouldn't try, because it might be, we get so accustomed to certain things. Certain times you shouldn't try to leave the house just for the heck of it, just for giggles and things like that, because you want to. There are certain times where it is best for you to stay in the house, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said so, right? The best place for the women is in the house and stuff. So you should not leave, especially after Maghrib. And we know what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about keeping the women and children in the house after Maghrib. So after Maghrib, you should not be willing to go out for no reason. Rather, specific are times that you should make sure that what you're going outside for is a necessity, and of course your husband is aware of it, so he can make the final judgment in those issues and stuff like that. Because it could be that he's aware of some dangers in what you're doing that you're not aware of, and he can make that call because it is his responsibility to make sure that you are protected. Okay. Any other questions?
One more. Another sister says, if the man has depressive mood disorder, should he marry?
Once again, that goes back to, how does it impact the marriage? How much will it impact the marriage? There's some people, because of being depressed, are not able to work. So now we're talking about the issue of, being able to maintain himself and his family. Is it something that goes, is it something where it happens every now and then? He finds himself in a rut and, it might take him a couple days to get out of it, but it's something that's manageable. All these things have to be known before I can say that, but it depends on how extreme it is. The person, it is impermissible for them to get married. And it could be something that if it's mediated and can be managed, it'd be okay. Okay, so I guess with that being the last question, we can end class by saying Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Okay, hold on. The Imam says, if a man is going away from the household for any length of time, does the woman have the ability to ask for a divorce? Okay. All right. So the issue of an absentee husband. There are so many factors that go into this, right? So first of all, we have to look at it from different angles. When he left the sister, did he leave her with provisions? Did he make sure that she was well off? Oh, he went away in the penitentiary. Oh, he went away that way. Well, it actually doesn't even really matter if he went away. If he got locked up, if he went crazy and decided to go and mine for diamonds in Africa, which that I heard that has happened before. That's why I'm bringing up that specific scenario. Or to decide that he was going to go about his business and do something else other than that situation. It would all come down to several elements. First of all, did he leave her with provisions? Secondly, did he provide any information of when he'll be back? Or is it just open? Okay, and we're talking about in a scenario where you cannot contact the individual, right? If you can contact the individual, then that's also another thing, right? That's another type of situation. There's a different element. Okay. Also, then the length of time now comes into play. How long is considered too long to be away from your spouse? Now, that's something that can differ from sister to sister. Okay, now here the the scenario that the Imam is given is about, he's going up for a life bid. He got a life sentence, so it's like 30 years around that, right? Okay, somebody's going away for 30 years. I mean, unless the sister doesn't have a problem with it and stuff like that, that's a done deal. That should be an automatic. First of all, he should divorce her. I mean, there's no way a brother could go away for 30 years and think that there's going to be a sister just chilling, waiting for him for some reason. I mean, he must be crazy or mentally stunted or something like that to think that that's going to be something that's expected. No, she does, because she don't got nothing else better to do than, for biha ni'mah. Then that's cool, that's good. But most likely, that's not going to be reality. And if that is the case and stuff like that, he should just divorce her. Like, oh man, I'm about to get locked up. Let me call her real quick, because you can divorce over the phone or by letter. Right? So you call her, say, look, they got me on a charge where I'm going to be away for 30 years. I know that I did not meant for this to happen. Blase, blase. You're divorced. Go ahead and handle your situation, whatever the case may be. Or write a letter. Dear sister so-and-so, you're divorced. That way she could continue on with her life now that you're doing 30 years. That would only make sense. The concept of these brothers going around holding sisters hostage, it eludes me as to the purpose of it. I don't understand it at all. So in lieu of that, I say that if you cannot get the brother to acknowledge the divorce and things like that, then I don't think any imam seeing that situation would have any issues dissolving the marriage. That's definitely grounds in a situation like that. In other situations, though, there might be a little bit, we have to get to some details. Like I said, like, did he leave her with provisions? How long is he going to be gone? Is there communication between the two? And all of this in the end is left up to the sister really to decide what she wants to do. If she has no communication with the brother. If she does have a communication with the brother and she wants the marriage to be dissolved, then the imam has to communicate with both of them to see what they can do about that issue. Now, hopefully that answers that question. And I guess it did. So with that, we can end class, right? Sister Layla, no more questions, right?